I think one of the other aging-related things that you talked about in your presentation was caloric restriction. Caloric restriction.
Yeah.
How did it feel presenting caloric restriction to a primarily paleo crowd?
Well, I figure it's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not necessarily that much of a stretch. I'm not saying don't eat meat, don't eat fat at all. I'm just saying, you don't have to go crazy. And I'm saying that this is a way of maybe going beyond the Paleolithic model. I'm not invalidating doing what our ancestors did. But my point of view is that just because our ancestors did it doesn't make it's a starting place for me. To me, that I think if that's all we do, we're ahead of the curve. But I don't assume that just because our ancestors did it, that's going to give me the longest possible life or the most optimal possible health, because I don't think nature's that interested in us as individuals that way. Nature's interested in keeping us around long enough and healthy enough to be able to successfully reproduce. And once we've passed that useful reproductive age, whether we've managed to reproduce or not, it's not that nature wants us dead, it just sort of loses interest. And so trying to go beyond that is kind of goes a little bit outside the realm of what's natural. And we really have to look at modern science in a way to kind of help guide us toward what ways in which we can manipulate those Paleolithic principles to optimize those nutrients for our best possible health and longevity. And not everybody might be willing to do that. I think there are very compelling reasons to do it, not the least of which are economic. Hello. I mean, if everybody took the amount of meat, if they're eating their, 12-ounce steaks 3 times a day or whatever, I'm exaggerating, but
that's my diet. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. I kind of thought, I wasn't going to say, but if people took their current, protein, meat intake, or eat fish, eggs, whatever, and cut that, in fourth, now you're saving 3/4 of what that cost you every month. You're also making that much more food available elsewhere. I mean, if you want to look at sort of the interest at large, for humanity and dwindling resources and things like that, and we want to make this way of eating accessible to as many people as possible. I don't know if we do that by gorging ourselves with as much meat as we possibly can. And I don't mean to cast judgment necessarily. There are some people that do that and seem to do okay, and they're not necessarily bad people. But I'm saying that you might be able to better optimize your results. And the other thing is too, if you've been a big carbivore for a really long time, that's what I call it, carbivore, big carb eater, big sugar and starch eater, and then you switch over, as many people did with the Atkins diet, and now you're told you can eat as much meat as you want, just eat all the meat you want, and you can't eat too much, and that's great. Well, once you exceed the amount that you actually need for your own regeneration and repair, there's a significant part of that protein that's going to get converted to sugar and used the exact same way. And in many respects, you're still supporting a sugar-based metabolism in doing that. You may be producing ketones as well by eating fewer carbs than you did in the past, but you're still kind of dependent on that glucose fix. And you're getting it now from protein, and but you're not getting as much. And so you're a little bit deprived in that regard. And I've had conversations with Dr. Ron Rosedale about this, who is also an advocate of what I'm talking about. In fact, I've learned a lot about this from him. And he agreed that he thought that that was probably a failing point also. I hypothesized that maybe the reason so many people on the Atkins diet failed was because they never really quite overcame that issue of being really dependent on carbs for that primary source of fuel, and they eventually got drawn back to those foods. It's a hypothesis anyway, but I think it's a valid one, because the more you're dependent on sugar for your primary source of fuel, the more efficiently you convert protein to sugar as well. And so those excesses of protein are much more likely to be converted to sugar and used the same way. So, and it goes to waste. It's not necessarily of benefit to us, and you're also upregulating certain metabolic pathways where beyond a certain point in age, speaking of mortality, we're more likely to trigger undesirable processes in the face of maybe, mutagenic processes, things that we get exposed to haptens in our environment, environmental compounds, various things that can cause our genes to mutate and start to maybe to have cells become less healthy. Do we really want to stimulate cellular proliferation at that point, which protein in excess of what we need for our own maintenance and repair will do? If we restrict protein to what we absolutely need for our own maintenance and repair, then it's kind of like, putting it in modern economic terms, you know, it's too expensive to build a new house right now, so let's fix up the one we've got. And then you're focused on repairing and fixing you rather than trying to make something new. And that's really what we want. That's literally anti-aging. So there are compelling reasons to do this. I don't think children should be doing this. I do not think pregnant women should be doing this. I think if people need to regenerate new tissue, then obviously they're going to need to upregulate those you know, metabolic pathways. I talked about a pathway called mTOR, which is this protein sensor pathway, by eating just a little bit more protein for a time. But as we get older, I think it makes good sense to restrict that. And there's certainly no adverse consequences to doing it. You can save money, you can feel better, you're not burdening your digestive system quite as much. And I can't tell you the amount of email, the avalanches of email I get from people who just, you know, feel fabulous. They have a tremendous amount of energy, and they're able to go for a very long period of time, you know, without requiring refueling and all of that. So it's good.
Well, that sounds like a really good state to be in.
I like it.
What more would you like to add? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
It has been just such an honor and a privilege to have been a part of this whole symposium, this entire gathering of just extraordinary people. I mean, I'm literally kind of pinching myself that I shared a stage, you know, with people like Boyd Eaton and Lauren Cordain and Gary Taubes and, you know, Tom Knott and yeah, you know, Denise Minger. She was absolutely wonderful. And there's so many people. I can go on and on. What a great thing that has been created by establishing the symposium and bringing all these people together. And I just hope that this movement grows, that that the videos that go out on the internet, that they educate the public, and that we bring more people into a better awareness of, you know, what it means to be optimally healthy.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for the work that you do.
It's been an honor. Thank you.